I think we're going there, and I think by the end of the year next year, we could easily be at $3,000, and that's when the thunder and lightning is going to happen. And when that happens, we'll jump to $6,000. You know, J.P. Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs are already talking in terms, you know, in a year or two or three or four, that gold will be $2,000 to $2,500. So that's a given. So buy the sovereigns. Get the money out of the bank.
There you go, Charlie. Hey, thanks for the call, brother. Top of the hour break. We'll be right back, and we'll be taking more of your calls. Robbie Noel with Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster on this edition of the National Intel Report, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to hour number 2 of the National Intel Report. Robbie Noel sitting in for an ailing John Statmiller, joined by Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster on this Tuesday. And let's go back to the phones. We have Guy. I don't know whether it's Arkansas or Alaska. You'll have to tell me, Guy.
Yeah, good afternoon, you beautiful two, you. Hey, listen, I just got talked to my neighbor, and she had applied for extended benefits under the unemployment plan and all. And when I was on it, there was a stimulus package passed by Obama that was supposed to ensure unemployment benefits to go all the way through January of 2010. Now, she got a letter saying that everything's been cut off in midstream, no explanation, no nothing, and she had just gotten her extended benefits just a couple of weeks ago. So this is very unusual for them just to cut things off like that without a reason. And I was wondering if Bob knows anything about the government having a shortfall in funds to support the unemployment benefits. And I'll take all your comments off there. Thank you.
You know, funny, Guy, you should mention that because earlier today I was driving downtown Scottsdale, and I saw a whole bunch of people standing in front of a building, and I didn't notice it before, but it was a Social Security building, and I've never even paid attention that it's a Social Security building. But it's the first time I've ever seen that many people standing outside the building before. So, I don't know. Bob, do you know anything about that?
No, I do not. First I heard, surprised, but
not sure.
Maybe they don't have the money to pay it. Maybe they're going to say, well, we'll restart it in January or something. We'll just have to wait and see.
Amazing. Let's go back to the phone. Steve in Ohio. Hey, Steve.
Yeah, good afternoon, gentlemen. And I was wondering, first of all, Bob, can you tell me the reason why the G20 summit was held in Pittsburgh, of all places?
Gee, I can't answer that. I really don't know why that was the preference.
And then, if nothing came out of it, which I'm beginning to wonder, with everything else that's happening in the news today, for example, all they've been talking about is Roman Polanski's rape trial that's going to be happening. And when I see that, something went on there that they didn't want us to know about. And because everyone's not talking about some of the atrocities that went down in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Steve, we've got a break coming on, so hold that thought. We'll take the short break and be right back. Welcome back. We're speaking with Steve from Ohio. Steve.
Yeah, and my question was I believe that something major did happen, and they didn't want to release it. And I'm not sure exactly what the major happening was, but my guess is it's got something to do with of course they've been talking about a world currency. And I believe that this was a major meeting because in two ways. First of all, they wanted to demonstrate that they could hold their meetings wherever they wanted to, despite any protest, and secondly, they wanted to show the American people what would happen if we protested anywhere else in the country.
Well, it was disturbing to see military police in operation.
And here we have the report of this one little town in Montana having these military-type people, some type of private military force patrolling their streets. I mean, what does it tell us when the government of the United States thinks that its own citizens are its worst enemy?
Well, have you been in the military, Steve?
I have, yes.
Well, you should know, brother, when you're in there, we look at the civilian populations. We call them civilians. We actually look down on them.
Well, I never did.
Well,
I never did. I was just right after the Vietnam War, and it never came down to that. They didn't have the type of situations. I have younger relatives now that are in the U.S. military, and they're telling me what is happening in there. The way they're being trained. And yeah, they're being trained that the U.S. citizenship is going to be the enemy.
Pretty much.
And also, just one last question, and that is, if Iran we go to war with Iran and Israel nukes Iran, would it be possible to ask the Russians to hit one city, sort of like between Maryland and Virginia? That would solve a lot of problems in this country.
Well, I don't think you'll have to ask them.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
To them, it's payback, and I mentioned the cities earlier in the program. Those are the ones they're going to hit. The Chinese will take the West Coast, the Russians will take the East Coast, and they'll wipe out the major population centers. And the U.S. will do the same thing to Russia and China. And China,
well, you know what that means, though?
They'd be happy to get rid of 1 billion people. That's not true in Russia, but Israel wouldn't exist. They would be just obliterated from the face of the earth.
There are some advantages, and one of them would be no more Federal Reserve.
Yep. Hey, thanks,
I'll
Steve.
let you guys go. All right.
Appreciate it. Let's go back to phones. Mike in Minnesota. Hey, Mike.
Hello?
You're up, brother.
Bob, I was just kind of curious. Have you heard the word spoken even quietly, force majeure, lately in that? Because everybody knows you can carry the shell game on so long with buying, the Fed buying its own money and so on and so forth, and the Chinese and everybody else knows the gig is up, that we can't pay our debt. I mean, can they really carry this whole charade on for even another 6 months or a year?
No, I think they can. Don't forget they're in control, and it's going to take a lot to get them off track, or maybe they want to get off track, but we don't know when. And the timing is too difficult in this situation. That's why earlier in the program I said 2, 1.5, 1 year, who knows? But it's coming. And, in May I started to see the PPI start to move up, which is a producer price index. And I knew that it was the beginning of another wave of inflation. And we're starting to see it more, and the PPI figures since then. And it'll become manifest next year in inflation that the government will admit to at 4 or 5%, when in fact it'll be back to 14 or 15 again. And, you got to take another look at it then to decide which way it's going to go. I mean, it's very, very hard to call these things. I've been very lucky in calling most of them to a T, but there's some things you just don't know and can't figure out. But it's coming. I don't think the timing's important. What's important is you get food in and a filter, and you have weapons, and you have your money in gold and silver assets. And that's all you worry about. And the people who won't listen to you when you tell them about it, just say, okay. and you just walk away. There's nothing you can do.
Those are going to be all the people that'll be the first ones to bang on your door when
just tell them to go away.
Honest,
just fire a few rounds over their head and say, hey, this is the business end of this thing.